Hi everyone! So last Friday we had the Diablo 4 Season 3 patch notes drop, and there was a lot of really interesting stuff in there. I already made my full breakdown video talking through everything a little bit, but I want to go more in detail, especially here on the Rogue. So in Rogue, you have to know that a lot of stuff was nerfed quite heavily. So if you have played Season 2, we had a Tybalt's Will bug that is gone, no more 22 combo points. So that alone is already a pretty massive nerf to the class, because basically as soon as this was discovered, everything that wasn't already combo points just switched to combo points, and well, everything that was combo points just became like 3 times stronger. So we have seen this here, for example, with Path of Exile. This is my tier 20 clear on hardcore, for example, with a level 50 glyph only. And people even went all the way to tier 25 Avatar of Zir, where monsters have another like 6 times more HP than this or something. So stuff went pretty wild with people doing like hundreds of millions of DPS or even like a billion DPS or something, with especially poison rogues. Now this build here, Penaref, was actually the one to beat tier 25 first, but I think Twisting Blades might have done it by now. I didn't actually check. Either way, it should have been pretty close. Both of those builds were pushing really high, and especially Twisting Blades got hit pretty hard. So if you look at the patch notes here, well, we have this in the bug fixes actually. So down here on the Rogue, first of all, they fixed the Tybalt's Will. So the combo points dropping out, that alone is probably a nerf of like, yeah, roughly like 2/3 or so of damage. It is a pretty crazy bug that we had there. So we lose roughly like 2/3, maybe even 3/4 on some builds, depending on, how well they worked with the combo points. And then we also had some Twisting Blades bug fixes. So this stuff has been in the game ever since, basically. But if you are not aware, basically what happened is Twisting Blades had this aspect, blade dancers with the spinning blades around you after it returns. And those spinning blades would deal 100% damage when you had poison immunity instead of the 15%. So this obviously made Twisting Blades poison in particular much more powerful than it should have been. So for example, and also on top of that, actually, so this was also hitting 3 times instead of 2 times. So it has 2 spins when it comes back, but it actually, like the second spin hit 2 times as well. So you got 3 hits that did full poison value instead of like a combined total of like 45%. So you got 300% of the original damage. So basically that nerf alone for Twisting Blades, poison in particular, cuts it in half, a bit less than that actually. So we get roughly like, 55% minus or so, and then we get another like, 60-70% minus on poison TB in particular. This Tybalt's Will stuff also opens up a bit of other opportunities now. For example, we were running Condemnation to actually proc those combo points, and now we don't have to do that anymore, and Condemnation doesn't actually help poison at all. So that it just doesn't affect poison damage for some reason. So we actually get like another weapon, like a Shiraz or maybe some other legendary. So you can do some stuff like that, and it's not like exactly that loss, you get something back. But overall, you can definitely expect that poison TB in particular is going to feel much weaker, especially on the bosses. So you're not going to see those like, dozens and hundreds of millions of damage ticks anymore. But you can probably kind of take off a 0 from that or so. So this is my expectation. Now, what does that mean for like poison TB in particular? Well, it still remains like one of the best builds. This is currently the Season 2 tier list. It will be updated very soon, guys. But TB in general will still be one of the best rogue builds. It doesn't really rely on poison in particular as a damage mechanic, for example, for leveling, for speed farming. It's mostly only used for like, maybe sometimes dealing with some tough elites or like the Nightmare Dungeon bosses. And outside of that, you don't care all too much about the poison damage. So overall, I don't think this will really hurt especially TB that much. Of course, everything goes down on the Rogue because of Tybalt's Will bug, as I explained. But again, when Season 2 came out, I played all of those builds without the Tybalt's Will bug, and then I tried them all with the Tybalt's Will bug, and I mean, I was destroying T100s anyway. So it just became a lot easier, it became a lot less Giga dependent, and you don't have to struggle so hard. You get these funny, like, kill the boss in like 1 second kind of clips. But outside of that, Tybalt's Will, I felt, was not really like a requirement to success for the Rogue. So I'm quite glad that these bugs have been fixed. Now, the bigger problem here is that they didn't fix the other bugs that made poison weaker than intended. So at least there is no mention of this, but also what you need to know is that poison imbuement currently does not work with certain stats, like core skill damage, marksman skill damage, cutthroat skill damage. Like those kind of like skill specific or like weapon specific stats actually do not apply to poison imbuement. And there's also a bunch of other effects that don't work. As I mentioned, condemnation, Edge Masters aspect, the expectant aspect for combo points. All these things actually do not work for poison. And if they did, then all these nerfs would actually be fine. And I think that poison would be overall in a very good spot. But right now we have to kind of like go out of our way to, use different aspects to actually try to make poison builds work, which is a pretty big fail in my book. So I was hoping that they would just fix everything at once, and it kind of goes down quite a bit, but it also goes up a little bit from the things that were missing. And then I think poison in general would be in a fairly good spot. Right now it's still going to be used. I actually still put it into some of my builds. I just finished making all the planners for Season 3 for the rogues. And well, poison movement is still a useful tool, but obviously you're gonna notice this change here, especially on twisting blades. For other builds, it's not such a crazy decrease, I guess, because this buff in particular, or this nerf in particular here. For the other rogue builds, it's not really such a crazy nerf, because this bug in particular was pretty nasty for poison to be and made especially twisting blades much better with poison than any other rogue build. But you can still always put in poison imbuement on basically any build. And there are still some builds that have poison imbuement. You see this here. Rain of Arrows has it. Death Trap has it. Twisting Blades. This is like the speed farming version here, but in the T100 version, for example, there's also poison. So there are definitely still builds that do run it, and it will be fine. Now the thing is that this is not the only change that negatively affects most rogue builds, though. There's also the close quarters combat change. So you see this here. I think it's also a necessary change because, to be real, the close quarters combat was just, up here and everything else was down here in terms of key passives on the rogue. And the only build that didn't run close quarters combat and didn't completely gimp itself was Death Trap rogue, because you have to play exposure and you cannot play anything else. But basically every single other build had to run close quarters combat to be considered a build, and that has been changed, and I'm very glad for this. Obviously this also means another nerf though. And you see this here, they went from 40% damage versus crowd control scaling to 10%. So in Season 2, we were able to reach something like 160, 170% damage bonus from this passive. So let's say 160. And that has been reduced to a quarter of that. So I get like 40% damage bonus instead of 160% bonus. So we divide 260 by 140. And yeah, this was actually 85% stronger in Season 2. So again, our damage is roughly cut in half. We do get a few small perks here, like this bit more attack speed and stuff. So yeah, it's like, again, minus, at least a third or so in our damage output. But they have also buffed some of the other key passives. So for example, here's Precision. And Precision is actually really legit now. So I think most range builds will actually run Precision now. So I talked also to Dioxide, who's making some of the other maximal guides, and we've been discussing and field crafting a little bit. And yeah, Precision, I think especially for combo point builds, is going to be huge, because you can always guaranteed proc this new effect now, where you do 3 attacks, perfectly giving you those 6 position stacks that you need with your combo point builder. And then your next core or ultimate skill is a guaranteed crit and deals extra damage, and that scales up with your crit damage bonus. And they also buffed some of those other, like, the uniques here, and also the range skills have been buffed. So there are also things on the bright side on Rogue. And overall, I consider Rogue to be like the best balanced class now. So there have been those outliers like the Poison TB and all that, especially in the higher end, like, Abattoir Zir type content, would excel at, everything basically. But now everything has moved a lot closer together. And for the new tier list that you're about to see soon, the Rogue has basically kind of like converged. It's like almost everything is like A, and then a bit of stuff is in B, and that is basically the entire Rogue tier list. So we didn't really feel comfortable putting anything on Rogue in S, but that means not that Rogue is like really bad or something. Like Rogue is still gonna have like some of the fastest speedflying builds in the game. You're gonna, blast to the 100, like with some of the fastest times. You can probably even go all the way through T100 Nightmare dungeons you know, in record times, basically. So I wouldn't really consider Rogue to be a bad class now, just because it won't have an S tier build. It's just that it may require a bit more effort, it might require a bit more gearing, but, you know, it still has these perks over other classes, like this insane mobility. You have dash and shadow step. You know, you have like lots of really cool builds, and I'm really looking forward to playing Rogue myself, actually, in Season 3 yet again. So in terms of the meta shifts, we're definitely going to see more Rogue ranged builds now. For example, Pen RF, I think, is going to be one of the more hyped builds now, that is at least somewhere even or so with Twisting Blades, which has been like the, you know, undefeated, you know, king basically until now. And it's going to be like somewhere close between them, I believe. And then there's still going to be a bunch of other builds. There's going to be like the Barrage build. It's going to be like pure rapid fire. It's going to be rapid fire with Rain of Arrows. I even theory crafted a rapid fire Death Trap build. There's like the Twisting Blades Death Trap. Lots of stuff here. Flurry F is also there. So we have a lot of really cool build options on Rogue, and you can actually combine a lot of things now that are still all somewhat balanced. And that is really cool, I think. So this is what makes me excited the most about Rogue in Season 3. Now, I will not be starting a Rogue for the race. I actually want to try another class this time. But I think that Rogue still has the potential to be world first to level 100 if you play it well. So we will see exactly, like there will probably be some people playing Rogue and see how it impacts them. But especially with this high-end content dropping out now with Abattoir of Zir gone in Season 3, I don't expect that those nerfs will be felt all too much throughout, you know, the progression. So maybe in T100 Nightmare Dungeons you're gonna feel a little bit. On the other hand, they kind of like removed the reason to run T100 Nightmare Dungeons. The actual target now is tier 90 because that's the highest loot in the game. So you can just go tier 90s and Rogues will have no trouble there, I think. And there's also some really cool new goodies here in this patch that are actually quite exciting to try, at least for me. So this one here in particular, I really like this concealment aspect that they added. That gives you extra res, and then it resets your concealment's cooldown. So that is a pretty powerful effect that maybe might be really underestimated by people. I actually put this one into the Twisting Blades guide. I already rewrote the entire thing here. So you can see there's the concealment. And there is a strategy around this concealment where you can reset your shadow imbuement cooldown all the time. So this is what I'm trying to do, and I think it's going to be one of the fastest setups you can think of, because it's going to be at basically permanent movement speed cap. You're going to explode everything around you with shadow damage all the time. It's going to feel a bit like the Barber in Season 1, and I'm really looking forward to that one. Now there's new uniques here, the Beastfall boots. I don't really trust them too much, but I did make a build around this, and we'll see if that will actually play out well. So I'm going to share this soon. And, well, I mean, all of the key passes are much more balanced now, so you can, you know, definitely play exposure. You can definitely combine things as well, outside of the builds that, you know, for example, I made here or something. And you can try to do, like, you know, exposure on some melee builds, but don't really lean too much into traps. You can now also go momentum again. They buffed the momentum aspect here. That's actually a really powerful aspect now for survivability. So especially on hardcore, this is going to be nuts, because they give you this insane life regeneration and also 15% damage reduction now with momentum. So you're going to be a tank as a rogue. So if you don't need damage, then you can just go this one. They also like made some cool stuff here with the Icy Alchemist and Toxic Alchemist. They just work now without having these other conditions. You just need to press Shadow Imbuement and you can, you know, start proccing your stuff here, which is really nice. So basically Icy Alchemist being the offensive choice here if you lean into Frigid Finesse, and then Toxic Alchemist being the defensive choice here if you lean into the poison passives. So there's that. And well, in terms of the unique buffs here, the only one that is actually good is Sky Hunter. We actually moved Wind Force, Solid, F tier, and also Eagle Horn. Like, I'm not actually sure that this is a buff. So I'm not sure what they're trying to do here, but it's not working, I think. But Sky Hunter is legit now, especially with the precision buffs. We're gonna see range builds running precision instead of the, you know, kind of clunky close quarter combat. Try to shadow step in and then shoot from range or something. Now you can actually play a pure archer. You can play precision and Sky Hunter. And I think that item is actually really strong now. At very minimum, it's going to be usable, but I think a lot of builds will actually just like run with that all the way once you find one. Now, there are a few other things here, like the small buffs to like some passives and Lyrana or so, but nothing that really matters ultimately, I think. But yeah, overall, I'm quite excited to try out the new stuff here of the range builds with these new items here, and we'll see where it goes from there. I will have some build videos for you very soon, so stay tuned for those. I hope you enjoyed my breakdown here for what's coming for rogues in Season 3. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any cool builds that came up for you or that you theory crafted that are outside of the ordinary with some of the new stuff. I'll be quite excited to hear it. Hope you like this, and see you guys next time.